impact. Living in a memory.
Hey guys, welcome into Impact. Today we are talking to two guys that are working hard to impact their world. Yeah, today you're going to have to listen to our stories, the stories of Kevin and Jeff. And so today when we talk, we are talking from personal experience, lives that have been built out of really a lot of triumph and quite a bit of tragedy as well.
Yeah,
so
you have to have failure as well. And I feel, especially that, like Jeff, I love your story. And I think people really need to hear that. And we've had a couple podcasts and no one even really knows our background. So I figured it'd be a good idea to go ahead and dive into that today.
Yeah. So Kev, as we get going, I wanted to kind of interview you and talk to you just a little bit. Tell us who Kevin Broderick is. Tell us a little bit about the complicated man that is Kevin.
Yes, I feel every man is complicated, even if they don't give that out, persona out to the world, right? We all have our inner demons that we're all trying to overcome. But I'm actually I'm a third generation contractor. Went to school. I was the first one in my family to go to college. Really that was the kind of the fear that my father had put in me when I was young, that I needed to go to college, and that the construction world was good to work at after school and stuff like that, but it wasn't a long-term situation, that he didn't want me in. But, like I tell everyone, construction's like the mafia. The only way out is in a casket. Once you're in for life,
That's true.
And so my parents had a company for about 26 years in Florida. I was born in New Jersey. I was raised in Florida, and really, when I say where I'm from, I really say Florida because I was a small child when I left New Jersey, and then me and my wife came here to Georgia, outside of Atlanta area, about probably around 11 years now. I really call Georgia my home. I don't even get back to Florida that much. Other we go to the beach sometimes, but other than that, Georgia has really become my homestead. I don't plan on leaving anywhere else. If I did leave anywhere else, it'd probably be like Tennessee. I love Tennessee. I love being up in the mountains. Because we do a bunch of work up there. But and then I had a cousin who was doing work up here, who had a roofing company. And me and my brother, we grew up in the construction industry, and so it was very normal for us to, kind of do something, but then kind of be more on the management side of it, right. Be more of the owner side of it, because we ran our parents' company. And so what happened is I worked for my cousin for a little bit, and that's when I was really introduced. You think I would be introduced to the insurance construction sales in Florida, right? Yeah. But my parents were so kind of old school, like a big hurricane or something would hit, and they would just write estimates and just say, hey, go turn that into your insurance company.
Oh, wow.
And they had no clue about insurance money or insurance estimates or anything else like that. We just knew we had a lot of work after a hurricane. We were one of those families where everyone else was freaking out. We were like, yes, like when a hurracane would come, because we know that we had work for the next year, and
we don't want anybody to die, but we want you to lose your stuff.
Exactly. Yeah. We don't want anyone hurt, but we wanted, your house and parts of your house to be blown off, right? And so we were like, yes, when it come. And so that was kind of my introduction to like the storm world. But again, there was no insurance side of it. My parents never even put a claim in on their own house.
Wow.
That's why they're so old school. And so when I came here, my cousin was doing it. And it's really my cousin on my brother's side. We have different fathers, but he was doing it here, and and then I learned very quickly the insurance side of it. And then me and my brother went off and we partnered up with another guy who did a lot of SEO and marketing, So we figured that would be a good niche to have as part of our partnership, is that he had access to all the staff members and people of his other company that would then blow up the roofing company,
right.
So that company, we soon found out that was not a good partnership. We found out that guy was actually going around. So it's pretty interesting how this is. is that this guy would go around and he would basically tell all these people that he was doing all this. He would get like someone to make a website for them. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
And then he would tell them, yeah, we're working SEO. It takes a couple months, 4 months, 6 months or whatever. We were in business for like 4 years and we were on like the 8th page still. Right.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And then so like I started being like, to my brother, because I was really more of the sales manager.
Right.
I was an owner, but I was a sales manager, ran the sales crew. And, so I'm like, dude, why are we on like the 8th page? This guy has a business doing this, and then also the business was paying him as well. And then he was taking additional, what we found out later, he was taking additional money out of the company as well. But what he would do, this is how skeevy the situation is. And he had a big house, nice cars, seemed very successful, right, in his business. So he would go around and he would get like, 10 companies, right? And they're all paying him $3,000, $5,000, $4,000, whatever he can get them to pay a month towards doing SEO work, right? And he wasn't doing any of it,
What?
Yeah. And so they were just paying him. And then what his whole thing was that he would make a website or whatever, which he can find a bunch of people to do that, do cards, a little bit of graphic work and everything, which, he's paying some, freelancer in, some third world country to do. And then he would keep these guys on a string, keep stringing them along. And then his whole goal was to go get more people by the time these people realized it and then dropped off. You know what I'm saying? So then he constantly had, but when you think about that, the numbers wise, let's say they all just did $3,000 a month, right? You have 10 people, it's $30,000 a month, right? That you're basically, and then you have like 1 or 2 people staff that you kind of have answer the phones, but you don't really have the staff that you say you do. That is doing all this work. You know what I'm saying? Wow. And so you have low overhead. You're just, you're just collecting all that money, right? It was it's like when you look at like a Ponzi scheme, right? It's like you're like, that was clever. And that was horrible, but it was clever, and they took us for a ride there. So for 4 years, for 4 years, we were paying like $3,000 towards his company. And then at the same time, we found out he was taking additional money as well out of the company afterwards. So,
oh my goodness.
So, and then, it was bad. So I just said, hey, I don't want any part of this anymore. I was like, whatever. So
did you guys confront him?
Yeah, we brought it up. And then, then he went through and he said that, like, we had took like $1,000 cash or something from a job, and it was like all this he said, she said stuff. I'm like, $1,000 cash, man. You've been getting $3,000 a month plus all this other money you took for 4 years or 5 years now. You know what I'm saying? And it was just, it was just bad, right? So I was like, I don't want to do any of this, right? And so basically there's kind of like an agreed, and it was in writing, but it was kind of vague, non-compete, situation, and so like I could have got a lawyer and I could have fought it. So I didn't do that. I just like, I'll do something else for a little bit. And so then I became an insurance adjuster, right? And that's when I learned all the back end of the insurance side, even more than I learned on the roofing side. Did what we call deployments, went to, my first deployment was in Missouri, big hailstorm. Like, the hail out there like wrecks everything. You know what I'm saying? So siding and everything, is gone, windows. So that was a good first start. And it was really neat though. I wish that I was roofing them, because there was I got put in Bethany, Missouri. It's a little tiny town surrounded by the wind turbines, right? For power, like out in the middle of nowhere, farmland. But there's like 10,000 people there. And there's 2 roofing companies. They had every single person in the entire town. I mean, I've seen, I don't even know where these guys got so many signs from, right? For being such like a small unit situation, like small town. Wow. I must have seen 500 signs when I was out there of like,
they got rich
of just these 2 companies. Oh yeah. These guys got super rich, like, I mean, they had by the end of it, but the thing is that they had no idea how to do insurance work either though.
Oh man.
And so they were coming to me because they knew I was an adjuster and I was a roofer, by trade. And so they would come to me and they would be like, hey man, can you teach me how to do this? Can you teach me how to put in final invoices? Can you teach me how to supplement? And, I'm on my first like deployment for insurance adjusting.
I don't have time for that.
Exactly. I don't have time. I'm figuring this crap out myself. You know what I'm saying? As far as the insurance side as an adjuster. And it was, you're trying to the insurance companies put a ton of pressure on their adjusters, especially in a storm, to turn these over quickly, and I wanted to show out, right? Because I'm competitive like that. And I had 4 other people with me, and I wanted to be the best adjuster in there, especially because I come from the roofing side. So I'm like, in the construction side, I'm just like, man, I got this, right? And so I just focus in on that. I'm very dialed in on one thing at a time. That's really how I work. And so that's why I was like, no, man, I can't help you. But man, if it would have been me now, it's like, it would have been so easy just to like do his supplements and stuff, and just do the estimating and make some money on it. And then I continue to do a couple other deployments as well. And then I got into real estate for a little bit too. Definitely wasn't my thing. I kind of like, it wasn't bad at first because I got to dress nice and look real professional. But the customers in real estate deals are so much more tougher to deal with than on like a roof or it's just like, they are so picky. They run you around, and I get it. They're buying a house. It's a huge investment, but you can run people around like as an agent, showing them houses for months, and then they just don't use you. You know what I'm saying? And it's like,
that wouldn't work for me.
No. And it was just like, this ain't for me, and and I'm used to being like out in the field, up on roofs, and getting a little bit dirty, right? And I used to be on the labor side for my parents' business, and before I got into the sales, right? I didn't really get into the sales till I came to Georgia, but on the labor side, also allowed me to see all the kind of the workings of it, right? To actually understand it. And then when I was selling, it was easy for me then to relate what I knew, that knowledge, into a sale, Right. So I definitely felt like that was valuable, But when I got back into roofing, like I had so much more knowledge, and as far as being an adjuster, that it helped my business. I mean, every job I did now is making like an additional 10-20% more than I used to make, from every job. So it was a big deal. Now, one thing I want to go back and say, so when I did go from the labor over to the sales, man, it changed my life, right? So the first sale I made was only $700. I made $700 commission, right? Yeah. That was it.
Yeah.
Right? It was a small little house. I made the commission, but I was so stoked that, because I was like, man, I used to have to work, slave out in the heat, do all this physical activity for that $700, right? And of course, some weeks, even doing physical labor, I would make $1,000, $2,000, $3,000, but for me not having to go out there and slave and make that $700, I was hooked, man. I was hooked. And then also I got directly into door to door, right? We had for the company I was working for, had no lead gen. So I got directly into door to door, and door to door is the best trainer for sales. I mean, door to door sales, you can have no better trainer than these customers telling you to get off their property. You know what I'm saying? And, and you learn like so fast, but then also you learn so fast to either get around objections or treat it as a numbers game and just kind of get through the numbers. Right. But what it also did for me is that it just opened my eyes to the ability that I could make money no matter what, right? So if everything dropped off today, I could go and I can go hit doors for something, right? For roofing or for pest control or landscaping or something else. You know what I'm saying? This was basically a gateway into sales, to where I can always find work, right? And it just, for some reason, never clicked before, because I never had to do it. Like my parents' business was in business for so long that they just constantly got calls. And now if I would have took that knowledge of what I learned here door to door and applied it back to my parents' business, their business would have been 4 times as big. The first year I was in business here, I did more in revenue than my parents did in all 26 years, any of the years that they had in
That's
business.
crazy.
Yeah. And so so I think the best year they got was like around 3 million, and again, you're talking about, I'm 37, so you're talking about when I was a teenager and early teens. That was pretty good, I mean, it was decent. Like we weren't we weren't high class, but we were we're sitting nice and pretty in the middle somewhere. You know what I'm saying? But then, the first year that I was in business for myself, we did like it was actually the second year. So we did 2.6 the first year. And then the second year, we did like over 3 something, right? Which would have been over my parents' highest year in all those 26 years.
That's
right?
Crazy.
So it's like, and then every year after that, it just grew, more and more. So it was just is the power of that ability. Instead of playing defense and allowing those jobs to come to us, I was playing offense, and I was going and capturing those jobs and bringing them in, Yeah. And because of that, that's what changed my whole outlook on business, and once I got that down, it was like, man, I could do this for anything. That door-to-door sales, that's what I tell everyone too. Door-to-door sales is the best teacher for sales. And I was just we had a podcast with Tim the other day, and he was talking about the same thing, how he would have any young person who was interested in getting into any type of professional sales industry or anything, as a teenager, go to a company that does door-to-door sales.
Right.
You will learn more there than you will ever learn in college.
Oh, I agree. Yeah.
100%.
Yeah.
And then also, I was going back, speaking of, college too. I had, I went into, for aerospace technology. It was the same thing too, and being an engineer. And just like the real estate, man, I just had this calling on me to go back into the construction industry, right?
Yeah.
It's just kind of where it fit, that puzzle piece fit. And, being an engineer, I was like, I cannot sit like in a building or a cubicle or anything else and just punch along in my same little area for the rest of my life. You know what I'm saying? I just couldn't do that. And the idea of being out there, meeting new people every day, meeting new projects, having new obstacles that come up that I have to overcome, basically problem solving,
right?
That's always what interests me, being out in the field, getting stuff done, and also that can kind of be, early on, I was doing that for my parents' company. I was like 16, 17 managing, 40 and 50 year olds, and so I think that's where some of my, some of that kind of came from, some of that management skills that I have. And then also a lot from my father. My father was he was Army combat vet. When he passed away, we got a bunch of his medals, very decorated. But he just never talked about it, right?
Yeah.
He had PTSD. Some nights seemed like more night terrors, sweats, stuff like that, that he would deal with. He was the type that never talked a lot about his military service.
A lot of those guys that saw service like that, including my dad and Nam, he never talked about it. He literally sat up. My mother said he sat up all night after he came home from the Tet Offensive, screamed all night. Next day, he went out and bought a semi, and that was it. Really, pretty much one of the last times I saw him.
Yeah. I mean, this combat sometimes, messes these guys up, so bad. And, and that's why, like, when we had Josh in, it was great that he was able to tell a story, but, my father never talked about it. And, and so he had dealt with it. And, he had some other trauma in his life, his father being alcoholic, his mother dying in his arms. And so he turned to substances to numb that, like a lot of people do. Yeah. And then my mother gave him an ultimatum of basically, she was going to take me away from him or he had to get sober, And so then he got sober, and I admire that so much, that man got sober for his son, you know. And, he, after that though, and because I hire a lot from the programs, the addiction programs as well, because I got that from him, kind of soft spot for those guys. But I see it all the time where these guys, if they can stay sober, they take that addiction and that addictive personality and they put it in something else. And if you can keep them, so they put it into work, right?
Right.
And those guys end up being the hardest working, most loyal, like maniacs, if they could stay sober, And that's what my father did. It kind of seemed like it was my father's after he got sober and got clean. He put that money into, he put that time and that addiction, addictive personality into work. He became a workaholic, And some people say that's a bad term, I respect my father so much for what he provided for our family. I knew he was working all the time. I knew he loved me. It's not something that he didn't say that all that often,
Sure.
because he was a kind of a hardened man, but just the fact that he would do all this every day and provide for his family. And I see a lot of people miss that, nowadays.
A lot of women miss that now.
Yeah. That providing, they're like, oh, you're just a paycheck, Well, it's not just a paycheck. If I was living on my own, by my own, taking care of myself, I wouldn't need to work this hard, And it's like, I really see it as an act of service and an act of selfishness, right? Where basically, you are giving yourself to this thing to then provide for your kids and your wife and your family, So it's, but a lot of people nowadays don't see it that way. They see it as, oh, you're never home, or, oh, you're, great, you pay the bills. That's great. I can get any guy to do that. It's like, oh yeah, you can. Okay, all right.
Yeah.
It's like, and there's a big disconnect nowadays. I feel with that, with that gratitude and appreciation of a man who actually takes care of providing for the home. Now one thing my mother did, she 100, but my mother's old school, right? I mean, she said she's going to be 70 this year. And she come from a different generation that appreciated that, and so my mother loved on my father so much for that, and that was beautiful, growing up in a household like that, where I seen this mother who was so appreciative of that, and that's also probably why I became such a workaholic myself, is like, I just seen like that, like affirmation and appreciation that my mother gave my father, for being a provider. And then that's kind of became what I've become, right? I don't know in my life, I don't do that much else good, like as far as hobbies or anything else. I'm a provider, right? That's what I become, and I think seeing that growing up and then seeing that there was actually spoils of the war, right? So that we ended up starting to make money, right? And then my father brought us up from a duplex down into and we had our own home, and it was nice house, and kind of brought us out of that poverty, and seeing that, I was like, great, man. My father and my mom gave me this step up. Now I got kids, so now I got to bring them up to the next level, and then give them even a bigger jump now,
right.
And so then I put that into my work, that effort, into trying to grow in businesses, and trying to just be overall a better person, a better entrepreneur, better husband now, better father, and I get a lot of that from my father, and a lot of that with him too is that he almost kind of made it his mission to bring on these guys that were troubled, that had alcohol issues, drug issues. There was a guy across that we had an office, and the guy lived in the woods in a tent across the street, and he was an alcoholic, and he would come around sometimes, talk to my dad when my dad was in the back, and my dad gave him a job, and then taught him how to have a trade, and then helped him get into rehab and 12-step programs and get sober, right? And then that guy ended up going off eventually after working for us for a while, opening up his own business.
Wow.
And my father did that for a bunch of guys, and I really try to carry on that legacy as well. And it's almost innate in me. Like it's, people always wonder, why do you keep dealing with these guys, and why do you keep having them come back after they relapse and they do all these issues? And I think that's really the legacy of my father, like still there, saying like, hey, give these guys a chance. These guys will, you can help these guys. They can be, and they'll be your most loyal, employees, and become good friends because you're the only one that bet on them, when they were down and out. And so I've kind of carried on that legacy now. Trust me, it has burned me many times. Like it has burned me. I've had to go pick up my tools from random crack houses and pawn shops many times. You know?
Yeah. But that tells us that life is messy.
Yeah.
You know, life is never perfect. So you have this legacy of your father that you've carried on. But what have you learned, not just the work side, because with every positive, there's a negative. For every workaholic, there's a negative side to that that typically impacts some other part of their life. What have you learned as a man? What have you learned from that going forward? Because I know that, you know, you're married, you have 2 kids, and, you know, there's this struggle for balance between work and family and, you know, and not missing my kids and, you know, and all that. What have you learned there, and how have you put that into practice in your own life?
Yeah. So, you know, my father, he would make it to some events, you know, when I was younger, but he was usually always at work, you know. And, you know, my wife had to have a hard conversation with me about a year ago about being more present with my children, you know, and with the family. So it's been hard for me to kind of give up that control. But I've definitely been more intentional with my time over the past year or so, making sure, because my kids are getting to the point now where, you know, they actually have school events and sports and different things that they're getting into. So I make it to most of those. You know, there'll be very maybe only a small amount that I don't make it to, you know, and a lot of times as if I'm in a, you know, far away or different state or something working. But you know, it's been a learning curve for me, but there's also has to be that balance because these people that are special in your life also need your attention, right? They need you to be present, right? My you know, my children, I talk about being a provider, right? And my children, one day they'll appreciate that, right? But they're also going to appreciate that time more that I spend with them right now. So they're going to appreciate more when they ask me to, like, we play this thing because they seen like WWE wrestling type stuff on TV, you know, and then I played with them one time like that. And now they're two girls, but they just think it's funny. You know, I come out like Hulk Hogan or whatever, and then they just want to play like wrestling with me now, like almost like boys, you know, and they you know, they jump off their bed and like, you know, elbow me and stuff and everything else, you know, and so, you know, that's the stuff they're going to remember, right? They're not going to remember that, hey, I was in Tennessee that last weekend trying to make good money for the family or whatever. You know what I'm saying? They're not going to remember that, you know. Now, later on, like, you know, when I got older, my mother instilled that in me, like, hey, your dad's working to provide for us, you know. And so I got a better idea of that, you know, really from her that, like, hey, this is how he shows love, you know, is that he provides for us, you know. But for my girls, but also I'm a boy. So I think there's a little bit different dynamic there, you know, with the girls. I think they really need to feel more of a positive role model male in the household, you know. So then, you know, when they get older, you know, they understand what the correct type of love from a man is, you know, other than, you know, some of this, you know, fast love that's out there nowadays where it's none of it's real, you know, like, you know, just some real positive, you know, love from a father, you know, can definitely help them in the future to find a better man, because then they'll understand what that male energy love is, you know.
So you're 37.
Yep, 37.
37 this year in June, right?
Yeah.
37, and you are also walking through some really challenging health issues that really nobody knows about. And just a few people know about it. Tell us what is going on with you, your health, where you're going, and tell us a little bit about that journey.
Yeah, so I got actually in my 20s, they found out, they did an EKG on me and found out I had something funky, you know, going on with my heart. And so I went and got checked out. I have a, you know, what's called like an ejection fraction rate, right? And So basically where my heart, basically it's supposed to pump at about 65%. So it sucks blood in and then it pushes back out about 65% is what you're supposed to have. Right. Mine sucks the blood in and only pushes out 30%. So even less than half of what it's supposed to.
Yeah.
Now, technically, that's considered congestive heart failure. But I have basically no symptoms. I've been asymptomatic my entire life.
Right.
I also I do CrossFit. I work out. Now again, cardio. I've never been good at cardio, and maybe that's the reason why. I've also most of my life have been overweight. And so that's also a possibility. I just just not in shape like I should be. So I really don't know whether it's the heart related stuff or not, but. I also have what's called a bundle branch block, basically where you have 3 signals that go to your heart, basically 3 wires. Only one of mine work.
Right.
So what happens is that it, they try to go through and then it gets blocked and then it has to go around and then back through the pathway that's open, And so what happens is my heart beats at tiny fraction of a second off than it should, And they say that could be contributing also to the low ejection fraction rate too. But really what I get from the doctors is that they really don't know, right? They all have kind of different ideas, but right now they did a genetic test. Nothing came back as far as genetic wise. So they think it might've been a birth defect. The fact that they found it when I was 21, and then what happened is I got on meds, and then my ejection fraction rate went up like it's supposed to, but it didn't go all the way up to. It never went up to 60. It went up to 45, right? 50, and which was good, And then I was like, oh, I got this. So I got off the meds because the meds make me feel like crud. And then I got checked out a couple years later, and so they put me on a stress test, right? An echo and a stress test. The stress test, I'm doing CrossFit, and this was that's about just a year ago, actually. And so I go on a stress test where you run on the treadmill. I blow that off out of the water. He said for what I have, I'm over here and everyone else is over here,
right.
Yeah. And
isn't everybody else over here 80?
Yeah. They're over 60, over 60. And he says what I have, a lot of people that have what I have are carrying oxygen tanks around, and so the doctors are even I don't know, man, and so it's just he's they're how do you feel? I'm I feel good. They're okay, they just don't they don't have an answer really for it. So they think it's probably, and seeing how well I adapted with it, they're thinking it was probably a birth defect. And now, and over all these years, I've adapted to having it, and so I don't really feel any symptoms, and I think, so what I'm going to do, I really want to try. There's been some, and doctors though. I don't trust doctors really in general, right? Because what I say, just like a hammer finds a nail, right? A doctor is going to find prescriptions. They're going to find surgery because that's all they know, right? And that's all they push. Right?
Yeah, and that's what they get paid for.
It's a business, right? It's a business,
is,
And so I'm going to try some other alternative stuff. I heard they have these stem cell trials that they're doing for the heart as well, and so I'm going to be trying those things. I mean, I'm doing okay right now. I just lost more weight, trying to kind of keep that pressure off my heart and try to help it, get back to where it needs to be. But it's something that we don't really know what's going to happen. I'm probably going to end up getting what's called a defibrillator. So what would happen if my heart gets out of rhythm is there's a possibility of where my heart will stop suddenly, and so the defibrillator will shock me back. It's basically implanted in me. They're talking about a pacemaker, but then they also don't know if a pacemaker would do anything, right? They don't know. So I don't really feel like going through that in depth of a surgery if they don't even know what the outcome is going to be. But with I met a guy who has had a defibrillator in since he was 15, super fit guy. One of the guys from CrossFit. I didn't even know he had this.
Right.
And he said it actually made him feel more comfortable because he had a safety net. That where he's oh, okay, well, I can go super hard and I know that if something happens, I'm not going to die, and so he said it actually made him go even harder, right? At the gym, right? Because he had the safety net to kind of catch him If
I wasn't
if something
worried
happened.
all the time.
No,
Yeah.
and that's something I worry. Like if I get, we're doing some type of WOD, at CrossFit, and sometimes I'm like, oh man, should I be going this hard? You know what I'm
Right.
saying? And it's like, because you want to push yourself, but now with that in the back of your mind of like, hey, something can happen if you go too heavy, too hard. You're like, maybe I should put the brakes on a little bit and back up a little bit. And that doesn't help your mental state as far as trying to get your full potential in your body or anything like that, because it just kind of keeps you at like a safe, kind of plateau where like, I don't want to cross this because I'm too afraid that something's going to happen, so it's, it's something, I feel God's got me on this and we'll get this thing figured out. I will not settle for what the doctors say. I would not settle that this is just it and there's nothing else that they really know what to do. There is always other options to explore. Even if they don't work, I'm just not going to just give up and say, okay, that's just the way it is. Right.
Yeah, let's just wait it out.
Yeah, let's just wait it out and see what happens. When I'm 50, I might need a heart transplant. I'm not waiting around for that. I'm not doing it. I'm trying to be proactive now, trying to get things figured out, looking into alternative medicines that are coming out, new technology that's also coming out. But I'm not going to sit back and just let this thing roll over. Man, I see so many people like that with, whether they get cancers or sicknesses, diseases, and they just sit there and they just let it happen to them, And it's like, I don't know if it's one of those things where it's like they just don't know, and again, I don't know either, but you best believe I'm going to figure it out,
Yeah.
And that's the way it's been my whole life is like, if I don't know something, I'm going to figure it out. I can figure it out. Anyone with an 8th grade, education can, read some books and figure some stuff out or look at YouTube videos or something, you know what I'm saying? Look at, websites with,
let's see, heart surgery
yeah,
on
exactly.
YouTube.
Yeah. No, I'm not, I'm being cutting myself open. Yeah, no, none of that. But
excuse me, honey, can you move that mirror so I can see better?
Yeah, exactly. But just know, just looking into other, also finding other doctors, right?
Yeah.
That may be into other alternative medicines. I'm not talking about like take some shrooms or something, but I'm talking about like stem cells, stuff like that.
Sure.
There's some wacky crap out there that you guys got to watch out for. It's a bunch of these like, flat Earth doctors and stuff.
Yeah.
It's but you got to just, you got to do your due diligence too. Make sure that they're credible and everything else.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of other people that just don't. There's a lot of people out there. They're not the norm, but they are out there that also think outside the box.
Right.
And so I feel like things like that need to be explored.
Yeah. So what is next for the Broderick family? What's next in your life personally? What's next in your life professionally? Where are you going?
Yeah. So, I'm with the family wise, I got some land and just trying to just grow my children up on some piece of land out in the middle of nowhere, man. That's how I like it.
Away from society.
Yeah, away from society, man. Just
this thing's getting nuts, man.
Yeah, just away from people, man. Away from all the craziness. Just be out there. I came, I pulled up in my yard the other day, and there's just this deer just hanging out in my backyard, and it's just nice. I sit on my back porch, just look out into the woods, and it's like, that's just like, my peaceful place, man, where I just feel closer to God, and that's all, really that's kind of taking more priority, but at the same time, I'm me and I can't just sit around. So, with my businesses, we have our TradesPro training systems, that we're finishing up here and putting in place, I'm going to launch, but, also I just try to get more, I don't know, the social media thing has been weighing on me because I've always kind of been in the background, and I felt comfortable there, kind of pulling the strings of my businesses and stuff kind of in the background, and something just told me that like, hey, for this thing to really grow and for us to get out there, like I need to kind of come to the forefront and kind of tell, give my knowledge, give my stories. And I feel like people can relate to them. It can help them out in their business. It can also just, maybe my story or someone else's story, your story can help their life and just help them get through some things that they had that they were struggling with. and it just God's really put on my heart lately just to kind of like talk to people about things, be more open, be more vulnerable, because I've always been real kind of like rigid, kind of shut off, and you do this, you do that. I'm, kind of, pulling the strings over here, Wizard of Oz kind of thing behind the curtain. And now I'm trying to come up to the forefront and just be more present with everyone, be more present out on social media, be more present, which also obscurity will kill your companies.
Oh, absolutely.
So, if people don't know who you are, what you do, there's really, your business dies off easy. You know, and so I want to make sure that people know who we are, what we do on all of our businesses,
right.
The ones that me and you own, the ones that I own personally, and I think it's the only way to do that nowadays is really social media, so we're doing that. Roofing company keeps growing, all the time, and every year it's growing. We brought on a lot more people, expanding, which is great. I can't wait for the our training system to come out and basically help so many people with that as well.
Yeah, that's exciting.
And then also in interviewing, we get to with the podcast, we started interviewing some really interesting people on all different aspects of the spectrum. It's not just for like what we do, like in the trades industry. It's a little bit of everything. You know. And I just love that. I love just talking to people that have unique stories. Yeah,
absolutely.
And it's been a blessing, man. It's been a blessing. But now talking about unique stories, I feel like you probably have a super unique story. And you've accomplished so much in your life. Every time I tell people, like, you gotta hear Jeff's story because it's just crazy, man. Mine was pretty vanilla, but your story is very impactful.
Let's do this. I'm gonna finish up. I'll edit that part out. Yeah. And we're gonna make this into 2 sections.
Okay.
And the only reason being is I'm finding out that when something's over about 40 minutes, people, because average watch time is we've got to we're gonna have to be mindful.
Gotcha. Okay.
So no. Not yet. I want to finish up here. So, okay, ready? 3, 2, 1. Yep. So, Kev, that's really an awesome story. I love everything that you talked about. One of the things that has always struck me about you was you're just one of those real people, and one of the most honest people I know. I do tell people all the time where I actually recruit for Patriot as well, and anybody that ever comes to my door or whatever. Yeah. I recruit them. And so I talk to them about who they work for. Why don't you come to work for us? Because I tell them, I'm like, one of the most honest people I ever worked for or ever known. And we become really good friends. Yeah. So let me ask you one question, and just to kind of wrap all this up. If you could boil everything down that you talked about into one sentence, one paragraph, one statement, what have you learned that has impacted your life probably the most? What one principle, what one truth, what one thing has impacted you in your life that is making you the man you are? That's a loaded question.
Yeah, it's kind of that could be very loaded. Basically, and I might have not have said this earlier on in my career, but I've really learned it's really 2 things, and it's about taking yourself out of the equation, right? It's really 1, putting God first, putting Him first in your business, in your life, your marriage, your family, right? Putting God first, man. And it took me a long time to learn that. And God had, I feel like at some point God kind of smacked me upside the head sometimes and said, "What are you doing, man? I'm showing you the way," and, and
we all get that slap upside the head.
Yeah, man. And then put other people first, next, and it's, because, I realized that I was doing all this for the wrong reasons, right? I was always about just, like capitalists, make money, which of course we want to do. And, and there's nothing wrong with that. I want to provide for my family. But I really try to be of service now to people.
Yeah.
And when they, if I'm able to help someone, I rather take that than the money.
Yep.
at this point. I mean, as long as I could pay my bills, and again, I want to, of course, I want to grow the business. I want to be successful. But I feel like I can't do that unless I am being of service to people and helping them first.
Yeah.
And, God's put that in my heart, to kind of, steer. And again, this wasn't the direction I was going. But now to kind of turn the ship and kind of steer it more towards a business of service and giving.
Yeah. Helping people.
Yeah. And helping people. And, and the rest will come, the rest will come, for my faith and my obedience, God will provide, and, but, it took me a long time, man. I was selfish, I'm human, and I was a selfish human being, and I've hurt a bunch of people in the past. I was always pretty honest with my team,
Yeah.
but I also hurt a lot of other people,
Sure.
that I loved and cared about. And, it took me a long time to learn that, man, I got to take myself out of the equation, man, and and I was just doing it for the wrong reasons before. And now, I feel like I'm on a better path,
Right.
that way. And I actually got asked to do a summit for, entrepreneurship for, teens and young adults in like impoverished, towns and different areas through a church program. And, and stuff like that. Like, I just want to help out with that. Right. I just want to show people that there's ways that they can make money and they can bring themselves up out of poverty. That they don't have to work that job where they make, $10 an hour
Right.
or anything else like that. There's other ways, or they don't have to run the streets and sell drugs or do illicit things to make money.
Yeah.
There's so much opportunity out here, but the problem is when some of these people live in where they live or in the areas where they live in, it's an echo chamber for them. And all they see is that violence. And the only people they see making money are the people selling drugs or doing illicit things.
Yeah.
Right. And I want to go in there and I want to tell these people, these young adults, look, there's another way. Like, I'll show you how to open up your own business. I know there's things that you guys are good at. I know there's talents that you have, know, and also because, college ain't going to be for everyone. Everyone isn't going to be a sports star. Right. And so what are you going to do? You're going to work at that fast food joint, it's like, how are you going to provide for a family like that? And also I feel like if you can get someone to the point where they are financially stable, right, that allows them then to help, like if they end up having a kid or anything else, it's going to keep the family together more. It's also going to help them, stay in the household. So then they can also be a better influence to that child, right?
Right.
And instead of, possibly going to jail because they had to do something that it was illegal to make money. And that's what I want to do. It's like, I want to try to help these young people so they can have these healthy families, they can make good money, and they can live a good life, and that's a calling that God's put on me lately. So, man, that's really it. Put God first, other people first before you.
That's good. Interestingly enough, I can summarize what you just said very succinctly, and it's actually a biblical principle. When a lawyer came to Jesus and said, what is, how do I go to heaven? What's the law say? And Jesus said this, he said, you're to love God with all your heart, soul, and mind, and then love your neighbor as yourself.
Yeah.
Then he said, all of the law, all of the prophets, all of it rest on these two things. So everything rests on love God, love your neighbor.
Yeah.
That's exactly what you're trying to do. Hey guys, thank you again for coming. Today, you got to hear Kevin's story, and fantastic story. One of my best friends, a guy that has impacted so many people on so many levels. And I hope this has been a great episode for you. I hope that this has impacted your life. Again, this is Impact.
Thanks, guys.
The impact. Live